Greetings, class. In this installment, we're going to be answering the question, how does arguing damage relationships? And there's two different parts of approaching this question, just like some of the other ones. I will talk some about what the authors of our book, Getting to Yes, have to say. And then I'll supplement it with some of my own feelings, thoughts, and expansions to how emotion gets to be part of the way that we respond to conflict and how emotion can become a driver in important ways. So the authors are pretty clear. Arguing is inefficient was a question that we've previously answered. Part of that answer was that arguing can be inefficient because it can damage relationships. The big way here that we're getting to their answer, arguing can impact people in an emotional way, and that can leave people with bitter resentment, and sometimes that bitterness can lead to grudge holding. It can be carried on. It can last a lifetime, right? The thing that someone says that hurts someone's feelings might just be too much, and it could literally become something that's deemed unforgivable. The authors don't think of it so much in terms of forgiveness, but that's my expertise. But yeah, sometimes the things that people say show or expose a character or a trait that somebody might feel like they can't tolerate, accept, or manage. And some of that can happen in ways that's predictable. Some of that can happen in ways that's accidental. And this is the part where I've deviated from the text to my own professional opinion. But here's the thing. Frequently, what happens when we move away, not to say that it's all dichotomous, reason versus emotion, but frequently when we get more amplified in some of our emotions, we're forgetting or leaving reason out of the picture. That is to say, like if someone gets angry enough, they may literally say something that they don't mean, right? And part of the way that happens, right, isn't that the person didn't say it, right? Or that they were like under the spell of something, right? Like the person did do it and may have known exactly what they're saying and known that it was true or untrue or whatever it was, whatever the objective reality behind the statement can be known. I know people who have told me, I knew it wasn't true, but when my feelings were hurt, I just wanted to get the other person back, right? Like there's a certain kind of retributive or vengeful feeling that people can have. Like we don't necessarily all have it. We don't have it all the time. We might not have it for all injuries. But like this is one of the more sophisticated things to really take note of, right? There's a certain kind of escalatory behavior, right? We're talking about a subject that's uncomfortable. We're arguing about a subject, right? That argument seems to get heated. I'm now as we go up the chart, then the behaviors change, and people frequently don't have the training, to really be in the moment and manage some of that. And that's not to say that training can make all things go away either, right? Like I have lots of training in conflict management and I would still never want to be a police officer because I'm not sure that the skills that I'm trained with would actually leave me well equipped to engage in a number of the settings that those officers are likely to respond to. And if I was, fearful for my life, for example, I might find it as hard as I imagine it is for people in those situations to be objective, right? And part of the reason that they have the training that they do is so that it takes people out of a position where they have to be objective or thoughtful. That's not to say that I'm saying that officers aren't thoughtful, but the reaction shouldn't be something that they have to think about. It's just resorting to the training. in a traumatic situation or an elevated event of violence, it shouldn't be a question about like, how do I think about saving myself in the situation? It should be what was I trained to do in this situation, right? And by going back to the training, that's a different part of the brain, and that part of the brain where those thoughts are being processed is less impacted actually than the reasoning center of our brain, right? Right. Different neurotransmitters impact the way stuff happens, right? So there's actually a biological, psychological explanation for how elevated stress and so forth, whatever the emotional experience of that stress is, can physically, biologically, psychologically, neurologically change us, alter us in those moments. So arguing can put people into those modes. Again, so if a person feels some of that, right, and we can think of it as we've learned in other classes as like our fight, flight, flee response. If you're having the part where the argument makes you feel like you want to run away, that might be a fantastic thing to do. If you're feeling like you should flee, by all means, get out of there. That could be something legitimately related to your safety. Trust your gut. But the point about it is, once somebody's in a flee mode, no chance for problem solving, right? If somebody's in a fight mode, right, as the survival instinct kicks in, an argument or some sort of interaction puts people into the feeling like, I'm going to do whatever it takes to get out of here alive, or whatever that fight feeling or experience is. I'm feeling threatened. I want to reclaim my safety. Lying might be something that's sometimes gets generated. If you're feeling like you're, engaging in something that triggers the fight, you might feel like, I might just lie to get out of the situation now. Dishonesty isn't a particularly good strategy for resolution or problem solving, but it might be a good strategy for safety. I don't necessarily want to encourage people to lie, especially, again, if you don't have training in it. I feel like people could spot, it in my just facial expression, something changes or happens where I'm not believable. If I tell lies, people can usually catch them. But like fight, flight, freeze. I think I said fight, flight, and flee, but it's freeze, right? So like that might be like the playing possum or whatever. Like you just completely shut down. Right, playing dead is a survival mechanism. It might work in some cases, and again, all three of those modes, just thinking about it from a conflict resolution standpoint, prohibit the opportunity for cooperative problem solving and collaboration and so forth. The person being competitive, if they get somebody into one of those modes, they may increase their opportunities for success. But now going back, right, thinking about how does arguing damage relationships, the moment that you put somebody into fight, flight, or freeze, that's likely to be the kind of thing that they don't forget, and that whatever it was that dispute was over, you've now done something different which impacts the relationship. People who have been in that mode of feeling threatened might not feel comfortable with being in a situation where that person has an opportunity to threaten them again. It takes a lot of work to resolve something like that. Trust isn't something that comes easy, right? So once somebody feels like they've been victimized, that fundamentally changes the relationship. That person might not permanently feel like a victim, but they will not likely regrow that connection to another person without some work or some effort, right? So if you argue with someone to get what you want, and then that person feels victimized by you in that experience, you better hope that argument, right, or that experience that you've put in or put that person into that then potentially damages your relationship was worth it. Like, were you fighting over something that was important enough? And that's not to say that you shouldn't feel like you're allowed to argue, but if you're not careful about what happens when the underlying interests and values are now starting to kind of come to the surface, you can really upset someone, offend someone. And once you've offended that person, right, their sensitivities in whatever way they are, you can't necessarily unring that bell. You might be able to apologize. You might be able to explain, I didn't know. There might be any number of mitigating factors which would cause that person to feel comfortable with you again. But none of those are guaranteed. And so I just want to caution people about how, while we frequently feel like the substance that is being discussed is like where all the energy is going, it might not be experienced or received that same way. The thing where you feel like it's okay to, argue, have a heated debate over an issue, might feel to the other person like they are being disrespected by the way that they are being spoken to. And arguments can do those kinds of things, especially, again, when emotions get elevated and different parts of our brains are then starting to operate in different ways. Again, lots of different dynamics. Relationships have components that might be beyond what's being discussed. But until you know that, right, like the safety is being guaranteed and that people are comfortable with the style that you're engaging them in, going about it the wrong way. And arguments are frequently something that can do this, right? In part because when people argue, they're using or might be pushed into different parts of their brains. Arguing really has the potential for escalating conflict cycles, increasing intensities, changing behaviors as people start falling back into different kinds of psychological responses. And so we should be thoughtful, careful about what's triggering us, what's triggering others, and what's happening when those triggers set in. We can manage some of that. We can argue safely, but it is something that we really should be careful about. And we should be careful about what's happening for another person and not just assume that the same things that are going on for us are what's going on for them. Otherwise, we really do run the risk of we get into an argument and lose a friend in the process. See you on the next one.